Welcome back, my friends and neighbors. My name is Mark, and welcome to the first video in my series of pilot vlogs. Today I want to talk about what it's like to start your very first lesson as a private pilot student, taking it all the way up to your solo flight. If you're interested in becoming a pilot, everybody starts with what we call the private pilot license, or a private pilot course. Now, you can do this in a couple of different places. One place usually is at a local airport, and it's usually in what we would call a mom and pop shop type of flight school. And that's usually for people that want a slower pace, they want to pay as you go, and just kind of take their time. This is what usually people go to if they want to fly for fun, or they want to fly as a private pilot for a while. They're not on a real career path. People that are on a faster career path will go to a more rigid school that is designed to take you from zero all the way up to usually your flight instructor within a 9 or 10 month period, sometimes a little longer, but usually inside of a year. If you're interested in just becoming a private pilot, then my advice is to look up what small airports are around you. Give them all a call, ask them if they do flying lessons, and if so, go and book what we call a discovery flight or an introductory flight with each one of them. The introductory flight is usually anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour, and it gives you the opportunity to get in the airplane, get behind the controls, and have a introductory experience, if you would, for 30 minutes to an hour, and just get the feel, if it feels good, being behind the controls of an airplane. Usually you get to take off, you get to fly. They do a couple of, some little shallow turns, a climb, a descent. They give you a few minutes to kind of play with it yourself and kind of do whatever you want within reason for a few minutes. And then they guide you back to the airport, and they guide you through an assisted landing to give you a good overall taste of, do I really want to do this? So if you just want to become a private pilot for right now, and you want to dip into your toe into the world of general aviation, then go and book a discovery flight at all the little airports close to you. If there's only one, well, that makes your choice a little bit easier. And that gives you an opportunity for two things. One, to figure out if you really want to do this, or two, it gives you the opportunity to figure out where you want to do it, because not every school is right for every person, not every instructor is right for every student. So it gives you time to evaluate them as a school as well. So that's number one, book your discovery flight. If you are like me and everybody else who is a student pilot and you become hooked very quickly, or you already want to do this after your discovery flight, your next step, which your instructor will guide you through, is booking your first lesson, and then your subsequent lessons after that, figuring out how often you can fly, how many times per week or how many times per month you can fly. And then what your instructor will help you do is go online and apply for your student pilot's license. This is very easy. You just have to fill out some information, and the FAA within 4 or 5 weeks will send you a little card in the mail that says student pilot's license. Now, this is essential for when you get to that solo flight, and we'll talk about this later. Another thing that you're going to do immediately is to book your medical exam with an AME, an Air Medical Examiner. This is a doctor who is certified by the FAA or blessed by the FAA to give out medical exams. Every pilot needs to have a medical certification to make sure that you don't have any medical conditions that would disqualify you. Now, go and find out. Your instructor will also help you with this. They'll guide you to one of the most friendliest air medical examiners around. You want to know who everybody else goes to. And that's not because things are done illegally. That's just because some air medical examiners will be a lot friendlier. They'll be a lot more helpful in advising you. You can go to them and have a consultation before your exam to see if there's any red flags, to see if there's anything that you need to gather documentation on to help you prepare for your application for your medical examination. So they can save you a lot of money. And your instructor is going to suggest, and I would also suggest, getting your medical exam done after your discovery flight, but before you book a ton of flight time, just in case you have something that would 100% disqualify you that you'll never get to fly over, which honestly there aren't a ton, but there are a couple. Even if you have a red flag on your health record, most of them can be navigated with the FAA, even though it might take some time. Most people can still eventually get a medical certification. Within the first few lessons, you're going to learn what we call the fundamentals of flight. These include climbs, turns, descents, and straight and level flight. This gives you a good understanding of the basics on how an airplane flies and how you can control it to make you a safe student solo pilot. Your first mile marker that you're going to get to is going to be your solo flight. That can happen at 10 hours, and that can happen at 30 hours or 60 hours. It doesn't matter. Here are generally two pathways that students take to their student solo, their first solo. Pathway number one is if a student is going to a rigid school that's meant for a commercial pathway. So they're flying 5 days a week. They're going to get from 0 to their certified flight instructor. They're going to get all that done within 10 months. And what they're doing most likely is within the first 5 to 6 lessons, they're learning all the fundamentals of flight, which is your climbs, turns, descents, and your straight and level flight. They're also learning something called slow flight, which is a little bit more of an advanced procedure. It prepares you to feel what the airplane feels like, to understand what the airplane feels like when it approaches a stall. And then they teach you how to perform a stall, what it feels like, and how to recover from a stall. But more importantly, what you're learning now is how to stay away from a stall. After they've taught you that within the first 5 or 6 lessons, the next 4 lessons or so is going to be focusing on takeoffs and landings on a calm day. Because the first time you solo is going to be a calm day. There's not going to be any wind. There's not going to be any bad weather to speak of. So it doesn't take you long at all to learn how to take off. Take off on a calm day is very easy. It's so simple. It's one of the easiest things you'll do. Landing is not that much harder on a calm day, but it does take a little bit more practice. So within the first 10 hours, their goal is going to get you to solo. If you're taking option number 2, which is if you're going to a smaller mom and pop shop, you're going to fly as you're able to, maybe twice a week, probably a maximum of 3 times a week. Your solo can happen at 10 hours, but it can also happen closer to 30 hours. Every student pilot talks about when they soloed, and it's kind of a badge of honor. Some people think that it's better if you solo with less time. I think it's a lot safer if you solo with a little bit more time, but to each his own. Everybody, it's a statement of pride to talk about your solo flight. The first time your instructor releases you to fly by yourself. And here's kind of how it goes. Usually your instructor doesn't tell you that you're going to solo. Usually you show up for a regular lesson and my instructor told me, let's go up and let's do some pattern work today. That's what we're going to do. And I was kind of surprised by that because I was expecting something else. Anyway, we went up and we did some time around the pattern. And then at one point, she went and just pulled her seat all the way back and took her headset off. And she said, all right, fly me around the pattern. I'm going to pretend like I'm not even here, you know. And I was like, okay, sure, whatever. It was kind of interesting, you know. And so we did. And we got back and she put her headset back on. She said, wow, that was more terrifying than I thought. Not because I was a bad student pilot, mind you, but because it was kind of like a solo flight, but she was still there and she wasn't near the controls, you know, which was kind of fun. And we had a funny laugh over that. And then she told me, all right, well, do you want to keep doing this today or do you want to kick me out and do it by yourself? And I was kind of surprised by that because usually instructors don't give their students that option. They just tell them. And so I said, no, you decide. And she said, nope, you're going to decide. I trust you. You make the decision. I said, well, if it's my decision, get out of the airplane. I'm going by myself. I was totally excited. And so I couldn't believe it. And one thing that I did that I remember doing was focusing on my checks, focusing on which stage of the pattern I was in, which part of the flight I was in, and then focusing on what to do next and watching for other airplanes. And it went really well. I came back in, I made a nice landing, it started sprinkling, and so I went back into the apron. My instructor cheered over the radio for me because she was listening too, and it was just really great. And we did a little dance, screamed a little bit, I don't know. And it was just a lot of fun. It was great. Thanks for watching. We've taken you from booking your Discovery flight all the way up to your first solo flight. If you have any questions, feel free to email me at nhflyguy@myyahoo.com or send me a message on my Facebook page. Search for NHFlyGuy and send me a message. I'll be glad to answer any questions that you have. I'll do my best to get back to you in a timely fashion.